That's how
I,
it
I I
started.
I love your honest answer. I love your honest answer. You wanted to be, in music, and you decided, I get summers off, I get vacation, I get winter break, I get, these days off, and I could use that time to pursue my real dream, which is becoming a rap artist or whatever it was. And I say rap artist because I saw a video that you posted on TikTok of
Mhm.
a rap video that you made and you showed your kids, right? And they said that it was cringy or something like that,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Well, Brandon, thank you for joining us at the Difficult Student Podcast. Can you introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Brandon Piasecki. This is my 13th year teaching. It's my only job. I've only ever taught since college. I'm the son of an educator. My dad
Mhm.
has been in education his whole life, so it's in my blood. Like it's something that I've always considered doing. I got into teaching in 2011 after I graduated college. I did Teach for America to start
Oh,
out, and it was kind of a testing the waters for me. I did a lot of work in college with kids, and I ended up directing an after school program, and it was really great. I really enjoyed that, and initially, so current, I'll start current. I'll work backwards to see how I got here. So I currently teach fourth and fifth grade in the city of Stockton, California, which
okay.
is my hometown, and I've been teaching in Stockton for the last 11 years. And how I got into that and Teach for America. Initially, I thought I wanted to teach like elementary because that's where
Yeah.
the age of the kids that I worked at in the after school program when I worked in college, where I went to University of Redlands. And because I studied chemistry in college and I really love science, Teach for America put me in a chemistry classroom because there's a very high need in the country. There's always going to be a high need for STEM teachers, and so there
Yeah.
was, they're like, well, elementary, we got, kind of more of a dime a dozen for elementary teachers, and you have a chemistry degree. Like we have no one with chemistry degrees. There are very few people with chemistry degrees. So can you teach chemistry
Yeah.
at a school in Greenwood, Mississippi? Very like super far from home. I'm a California boy, like born and raised in Fresno, and then lived in Stockton most of my life, and then went to school in Southern California. So Mississippi was a totally new world for me, and that's where I taught for 2 years. I taught for 2 years in Mississippi, and then at the end of my teaching career there, or my phase of teaching, my teaching career there, I decided to look back to my hometown. One of my high school connections was running for city council. I had other friends who were coming back to teach and do other things. So it was kind of like this we called ourselves the boomerangs because we were all like we were from Stockton, went away, did a couple things,
Came
lived our lives,
back.
got some experience, and then we all came back. It was a big group as it came back in like 2013, 14, 15, and it was really cool to see that. So yeah, I taught chemistry in Stockton then,
Okay.
13 till about 2021 at a high school. Did IB chemistry and a bunch of other subjects kind of within that, but chemistry was my kind of main subject every year. It was that and something else. So I've taught up till that point. I taught sixth, seventh, eighth, a little bit eighth, not much eighth, but the ninth through 12th grade. But all at the time, I was doing a little chemistry. That was a constant. And then 3 years ago, I was reached out to by a school called KIPP Stockton Middle School.
Yeah.
The KIPP organization, pretty
Hmm.
well known
It's
charter network.
big. It's well known.
Yeah, yeah. So they were trying to found a school in Stockton, and so the principal reached out to me, and yeah, like lo and behold, it just seemed like a really great fit for where I was at. She's really awesome. I've mentioned a little bit about that on my TikToks and my content a bit. But yeah, like the school that I'm at now, it was really fun to be on the ground floor.
Hmm.
And that's where I teach now. I teach it's different. It's a middle school. So instead of high school, I'm teaching fifth grade
Yeah.
science. That's been the constant. And then to round out my schedule and make sure we can meet all the needs of our students, I have taught fifth and sixth grade. I'm doing fifth and fourth grade now, and I'm also adding math to my resume this year, first time ever. So,
You said you came out of Teach for America.
mhm.
Can you explain that journey a little bit? Because I know there's some people that are in the program right now, Teach for America. Can you explain that journey a bit?
Yeah. And I'm a little far removed now, so I'll comment on my experience, and maybe hopefully it can help people in the current in current state of things. Back in 2011, we were in the recession, as you probably remember,
Yeah.
and just jobs were hard to come by, and I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. So for me, I like Teach for America in the sense that it's 2 years, so it's like it's enough time to really try something. Um, and for me, it was great because I was considering teaching. I have a degree in chemistry. I actually minored in creative writing as well, so I love creating, on like the creative side of things as well. And so the thought of creating lessons, engaging ways for students to experience chemistry it was really appealing to me. But I was like, I don't know if I want to like just jump right in and commit to this. Like in my mind, like going into a credential program seemed like a bigger commitment than just like, okay, Teach for America is more of a, you kind of learn on the job. And honestly,
Yeah.
teaching, as I learned, you kind
Hmm.
of learn on the job no matter what. So there's no perfect system. So yeah, the idea about Teach America, real simple, is 2 years in a high need area, like a really, really
Yeah.
high need area. And for me, the year I applied, Mississippi was the region they were highlighting. It was right 50th out of 50 in the United States. And so yeah, I was like, it wasn't my top choice, but I was like, I put it in my highly, they have you rank, so it was in my top like 5 or so. So
Hmm.
I was set. And yeah, it's like the Peace Corps. The Peace Corps is a little bit more widely known. It's comparable to that. It's 2 years, and you get some loan forgiveness out of it. So there's that aspect. It's a good life experience. It's a full-time job, So there's a lot of pros. I met many lifelong friends through it. Like there's a camaraderie aspect. You
Yeah.
get a lot of professional development through it too. And depending on where you're at, you can get units. And to some regions, you can get like up to a master's degree. It wasn't really the logistics for where I was at because we were in Mississippi. It was all spread out. I was like in the middle of rural Mississippi, so I couldn't really go to college, and like
Yeah.
school wasn't really built out back then. I feel so old saying that, so it wasn't an option. But we did get some units for our trainings.
Okay.
That answers the question.
Yeah. No, you did because I taught at a middle school, and there was a city year. Are you familiar with city year?
I am. I applied for that too. Yeah, it was. I
Yeah.
cast the net wide. I applied for Peace Corps, City or Teach for America, and I ended up doing Teach for America.
Yeah, there was city year there, and it was a 2-year program, and they worked long hours, like 8 hours a day or something like that. They did
Yeah,
like in classroom as well as after school program and before school, um, and they were very dedicated. They're full of energy. When students walked into this middle school, they were all cheery and happy and playing music and chanting, and the kids were all like sad and depressed and didn't want to go to school, and they were trying to pump them up and be like, all right, let's go, guys. But you know, I respect them. They
100%.
had a long, hard journey to become, I guess, an educator.
Yeah,
It was rough. I felt like it was rough for them. It was a long day. It was a long day. They're away from their family. They had to follow these strict rules about what kind of clothing they had to wear. The belts, I remember they had to tuck in. Like everything was like there was some sort of there were a lot of rules, and they stuck it out. And I respect that. And they're, I respect Teach for America as well as City Year.
yeah.
So
That first year was really hard, and I think every first year teaching year is difficult and challenging. The more challenging aspect for me, the part that made it even harder for me, was I was so far from home, and so I think that's
yes,
I learned a lot of life experience through that, and made me appreciate like where I was from so much more. And but also like I also found like a low key second home there. Like the community was very welcoming to us, and so like there was that piece too, which was really cool. So
yeah. So science.
yeah,
Let's talk about science.
science.
Let's talk about science. Your chemistry degree, teaching,
Mhm.
you're a STEM teacher at KIP, fourth and fifth grade. Let's talk about that passion. Where did you find that passion for science? Where did that come from?
It's a good question. So when I took chemistry in high school, it was just really interesting to me. I enjoyed the labs. I think, like when you think of chemistry and like fun science, you think science labs. And
Hmm.
I loved doing the labs in my science classes in high school. I took IB chemistry in high school and like was really into it. So I didn't always have the greatest experience with the teacher though, and so I always had to stop. Like as I graduated high school, like how cool would it be to be like like just the best chemistry teacher. So like students enjoyed chemistry. Like you got to be here. Why not enjoy it? Sort of.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And so then it was like that was in my mind going to college. As I started college, that journey, I didn't go into college with a chemistry mindset or like trying to study science. I went into college actually. I was considering studying music and business because I love
Oh wow.
music. Yeah, I
Oh,
love
wow.
music, and so the thought process was freshman year. You know, I didn't know anything. I was like, I'm gonna be like the next big music producer. I'm gonna be the next Timbaland. It's 2007, so I was like, I'm gonna be the next Timbaland making beats in
Yeah.
the like. I was in Southern California, like I'm near LA. Maybe I can make something happen. Anyways, um, this is just young me. I kind of got discouraged because like I tried to do like play gigs and stuff, and like stuff was happening. Like I feel like it's the one thing that I feel like I'm naturally gifted in is music. I just get it
Mhm.
naturally. But it was like the logistics side of like making money, and like I kind of got discouraged by the whole industry. Like I was super young. If I could redo it, I might have done differently. However, I was thinking to myself, how could I then, if I want to get a degree and have a nice stable job, what job could allow me to play music on the side? And so I thought,
Yeah.
oh, teachers have summers off. What if I
Yeah.
became a teacher? And then I was like, what would I want to teach? I narrowed it down. Well, my high school experience wasn't the best with chemistry. I think there's a high need for science teachers. Anyways, that's my journey. I basically was like, what can I get a job at that would allow me to play music? And I became as let's study science so I can become a teacher possibly. And then I was like, if I don't teach with chemistry, I can get a job as a chemist. Like I like science. I wouldn't mind doing that either. So
Yeah.
that's how.
I love your honest answer. I love your honest answer. You wanted to be, in music, and you decided, you know what? I get summers off, I get vacation, I get winter break, I get, these days off, and I could use that time to pursue my real dream, which is becoming a rap artist or whatever it was. And I say rap artist because I saw a video. I saw a video that you posted on TikTok of
Hmm?
a rap video that you made, and you showed your kids, right? And they said that it was cringy or something like that, right? Something like that, right?
Yes.
And
So
so that video was old. You said it was like years past, right? How long ago was that video?
when I started teaching chemistry in Stockton, I kind of went back to some of the initial music dreams that I had back when I was a freshman in high school. I heard I heard this song Tom Ford by Jay-Z on the radio,
Yeah,
and I was like, oh,
yeah.
like I had this little hook in my head about like the periodic table rap, like what's the table for all this stuff. So like teaching about periodic trends. So I made a rap song about that, and my kids loved it. The next year, some kid like went behind the DJ booth and put his phone into the auxiliary cord and played it at prom or something like that. It was super funny. So like it became this like kind of what do you call it, like cult classic in the circles of my high school students.
Yeah,
It was really fun, and I did a few other songs. Every year a new song, and I had a YouTube channel, and like it wasn't anything big, but it was fun to make videos. I had a friend who made videos for a living. He did like some music video stuff with me and my students, so that was fun. So the music has come back, and
yeah.
yeah, but it's just fun. I think back, I'm like, oh, I thought I'd have all this free time to play music. Like that is not true. Like that is not true at all. It's major misconception, and we see it all the time in teacher content land on TikTok about
Yeah.
saying, "Oh, you got all this free time," when that's not the case. Like in the summers, especially stage of life, if you got a family, summers you busy. So,
Mhm. That's
um,
right.
but I am so thankful for the journey it's taken me on because like it's kind of the creative energy, like I mentioned, like the creative energy that I had around music, I'm putting in my lessons. I'm putting in like how can I create activities and still like from time to time bring music in. Like music is definitely something I still love to bring in, so I can bring that creativity in to inspire students about whatever I
Yeah.
teach.
So how do you so I'm figuring that's how you combat student apathy,
Yeah.
right? You make your lessons really interesting. And can you talk a little bit about that? Coming in with your background, you like rap music, you like making videos, you like to make science alive. How does
Hmm.
that help with student apathy?
Helps a lot. All of the things you mentioned. I think you think about content and like making, trying to gain a following on TikTok and stuff like that. You need to develop a brand, and I
Mhm.
think as a teacher, you don't need to be super like you don't need to call it that, but it's the same idea. You need to be conscious of how students like perceive what you're essentially like marketing to them, right? You're
Yeah.
marketing for them. So how can you market this? How can you package it in a way that is accessible and
Mhm.
attractive to them?
That's right.
And yeah, music is one big thing. At my school, just because I've been on TikTok for now like 4 years, like they know me, that they know that I'm on TikTok, and they think that's cool. So there's that aspect of it. I run our school's TikTok and social media, so there's like if I'm ever doing a lesson, even if it's just like a handout, I'm like, all right, who wants to be featured on the school TikTok? Who wants their work shown on the school TikTok? And it's like just that little extra layer of investment goes a long way.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So it's like I just walk around my phone, like to see this, make a little quick video, and they're like, oh, like if I work on this with speed, like if I work on this. And so yeah, I think the more you can I think it's just partly them being aware that I value something they value, like when it comes to TikTok, like the fact that I'm
Yeah.
just on it. I think there's that's common ground, right? You talk about student behavior and student relationships, because ultimately, like, behavior is a sign of, it's a symptom of something else that's going on that
Right.
you can solve a variety of ways. Of the most effective way, and I agree with you on this, is relationships, and the way to build relationships is building it on common ground. So I think you mentioned like the music, the content, and honestly, like, I'm just a very high energy individual. Like
Oh,
I
you
just
are.
bring
Oh,
that
you are.
I'm like a hype man for everything I love. So
Yeah.
I'm like a hype man for science. Like, so sometimes it's literally just like, okay, if it's getting kind of dull, I'm just like, I just amp the energy up a little bit more. And so all those things, I think,
That's
are
good.
ways to combat apathy, because
So
every day you're combating apathy.
that's
It's
right.
you're competing against all these other forces.
Would you say that apathy is worse now than before COVID?
That's a great question. You know, I think instinctually, like my off the cuff answer might be yes, but I'm also wondering if it's like it, I think it's a yes and no kind of thing. Like, I don't really know for sure if it's worse. Maybe it's more pronounced, or maybe there's just more distractions.
Yeah.
Because I think what it is, pardon me. I think that I think it's more distraction. I think that COVID unleashed this I mean, sort of like, what else? You're at home all day. Like,
That's
what
right.
else are you gonna do? Like, you and I both, like, all of us are on TikTok because of
Mhm.
COVID, right? Like,
Mhm.
we were home all day and bored and trying to fill our time with things. Like, free time is a vacuum, and it was 2 years pretty much. Like, some places like that longer, at least a year, of just this vacuum of free time, and students having a device they can just go on and scroll, and just
That's
find all
right.
this, stimulating content. So I would say it's, yeah, I would say that the increase in distraction can be a cause for more apathy, because students are, when they're in class, even if they don't have their phones, they're thinking about what's on their phones and thinking about, when can I get to my phone, and when
That's
can I
right.
get to that video game, that next Fortnite, like, whatever it is. I don't play Fortnite, but like that next thing on Fortnite, the next thing on Roblox. And so I think that, so it's a roundabout way to answer your question. I've kind of thought through it. I would say yes, it has, because of the increase in distractions.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember when I've been out of the classroom for about 6 years. Out of the classroom for 6 years,
Mhm.
and when I left the classroom, um, Google Classrooms was when I started using Google Classrooms, and so I was making tests on Google Classrooms, and I was having students log in on Google Classrooms, and then I left the classroom. I became a dean of students, and then you see more technology happen than COVID, like you said, COVID. Then everybody had a device at home, and everything's now on a device. You know,
Every-
everything's on a device. You take your test on a device. You're not using paper and pencil. It's rare that you use paper and pencil. You use it, but not nearly as much as you did before COVID. So now you're always on a device. You always have you're one click away from YouTube. You're one click away from some other, app that you like on the device, and you're in the classroom. And like you were saying, because we have access to a device, all day long, it does. The distractions are high, and students will click on another site, just like we would, just
Yep,
like we would. The same thing that they're doing is the same thing that we would do. We're at whatever. I'm gonna be honest. You're at a meeting, and you're like,
exactly.
oh, hold on, let me open up another window right here and listen. But then I'm looking at an Amazon Brooks shoes. I'm looking up running shoes as a, like I don't know. We're all distracted now. We're extremely distracted. And how do we get the students? How do we use that? I don't know, to get students attention back. You had mentioned, you just said this. You said I tell kids, "Hey, you wanna be on our TikTok school page?" And
Yeah.
they're excited. They
Yeah.
might go a little harder on their work, and they'll be like, "Yeah, put my work up, Mr. P."
Mhm.
Um, because you had mentioned that, those kind of things, I think that we need to do things like that. Like my school has a class dojo. My school
Yes.
has a
I
class
use
dojo,
it. Mhm.
and I I'll film us playing kickball. I'll put my camera out there and we'll play kickball and I'll post it. Little things like that.
Yeah.
And they'll wanna participate. They'll
Yeah.
wanna be on the class dojo. And so I think that trying to find ways to use technology to our advantage as educators is what we got to figure out. That's
Yeah.
a, and if you're not okay with that, you're gonna have a hard time. You're
Yeah.
gonna have a hard time. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think something I do in the class, and a lot of our teachers do this, is we always start 100%. I mean, the goal is 100% of our teachers start off with paper warm ups.
Mhm.
So even if you're going to use a Chromebook in class, like we all students have Chromebooks throughout the day, like in their backpacks all day long,
Yeah.
and we use Chromebooks like there's simulations I have us use, and like we definitely use Chromebooks, but not nearly as much as like last year. I used them a lot more, and the management of technology can be a lot. It can be impossible. It's impossible to manage everybody's Chromebook. Even if we have Hapara, and Hapara is great. Like it's one of the many on those other ones, Guardians one I think.
What is that? What is a para?
Papara it's an app or a website that it allows you to see the screens and what the tabs that every student has open,
Mhm.
and it's cool because you can there's like the just like freeze all screen button. You can just if people are wild, just be like, all right, freezing screens.
Oh,
It's an attention getter. They can also be triggering, so be mindful of that, and you don't want to you overuse that, but it just gives you some control over how to guide students.
yeah.
There's also there's different features, like you can push links out to students. So I like it because it can be easier, because the other piece is some students, it's really interesting to me that some students can find certain links so fast, but then you tell them to go to a site that you've used in the past, and it takes them 5 minutes to get there. Like how, it's because they're
Yeah.
excited. Maybe they don't know how to get there. Maybe they weren't paying attention. But with Hapara, you can just share the link to them. You open your Chromebook and you share it. So it's nice if you're in that space. I just got to get something to them fast. But it's a band-aid, not the cure. Like you said, we need to teach students how to manage technology. I also think that another, I think it's a balancing act, because in the world, technology is only doing this. It's like an exponential, as
Oh yeah.
technology, especially
Oh
with
yeah.
um, what's the phrase? AI. I forget the generative AI. With generative AI, it's only going to just keep doing this because the
That's
AI,
right.
or AI and all that stuff. I'm no expert, but I just know it. We know it's going to just exponentially increase. So for me, something about a year ago, I got into meditation and mindfulness, and I always been aware of it. Over the last 5 years, okay, that's cool. But I'm good. I feel like I'm pretty even keel,
Mhm.
and I kind of got into it more on my own for myself. And what I've found is just 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day. And by no means am I hitting that every single day, but when I'm in a good groove with it, it can help me not be as reactive to the distractions of technology. And I
Mhm.
think that's a tool we can teach students as well. The technology distraction is only going to get harder and harder for you to have self control over. But if you can develop the mental fortitude to focus and know when it's fine to just scroll. There are times of the day where it's fine to scroll when you're outside of school, or after school
Yeah.
program or something. But it's if you can develop the mental fortitude to understand. I tell students this year, I started saying this phrase: think about future you. Literally, I know in a week your grades are coming out. Think about future you. Your decisions right now, if you get that grade in a week and you look at that grade and it's not what you want, you have yourself right now to thank. Think about your
Right.
future self. And that's kind
Yep.
of the mindfulness angle I've been really trying to focus on and teach students. We do mindfulness sometimes in my class, and as a school, we have socio emotional lessons every Tuesday and Thursday in the mornings before school, which is kind of cool. Little thing, hopefully adding more tools to their toolkit.
That's good. That's good. So, um, this is just a question I had. When did your students find you on TikTok? When
Pretty
did they find you on TikTok?
pretty early. My students at my old school, I started TikTok in 2019. Little
Okay.
rewind how I got into social media because it's kind of wild. I when I was teaching my old school, it was in downtown Stockton,
Mhm.
and me and some friends, just like friends from the city, uh, decided to start a craft brewery.
Okay.
And this is like a total tangent, but I got
Yeah.
into social media because it. I was on the they call me the hype man of the brewery. It was like a total side hustle kind of situation, and you know my role was basically get people in the door, and so I learned social media, and the brewery shut down in 2019. It was fun. It was a good life experience, but it wasn't making money, and but the social media bug, kind of like the creative bug, I kind of caught that itch to create stuff, and
Yeah.
so in that you watch Gary V. You ever watch
Oh
Gary
yeah, I
V?
watch Gary Vee. Yeah.
So I got into Gary V is like learning like the business side and learning the ins and outs of like the logistics of business, but also just like social media and content. And so in 2019, that's when I started TikTok. I was like, I'm just gonna start posting these science videos I take in my class. I've taken videos of my science experiments like since I've been teaching, and I had all these videos saved up, and so I just started throwing them up, and a few of them went really viral, like millions of views.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like I had in 2019, I had one video I post of it was like a sped up video of me doing water drops on a penny. Got like 2.3 million views. It was like crazy. That was like the whole dopamine of like, oh my gosh, like this is so cool. And
Yeah.
that's when my students figured out that I had TikTok, like, because it was like, oh, there's no hiding this now, like,
Yeah. Yeah. Two
and
million views. That's a lot of views.
yeah, it was crazy. So yeah, it was really fun. And I kind of had little seasons of like where I create more like create content. And then I had seasons where I would just kind of not and just kind of focus on. I had a baby in 2019, my first child, and so that then COVID hit and like um, we had a lot more time off in COVID, but we also had a newborn baby. So like, you know,
Yeah.
that was so yeah. But my students found me on TikTok at my old school in 2019, and then my principal is like, she's hilarious, and she basically told the students that like, oh, Mr. P's TikTok famous.
Uh,
In school, and so like from the get, like all my students be like, oh, Mr. P with TikTok. So like
yeah.
at my new school, like they've known since day one, and like my principals are like basically broadcast that. I didn't even want to tell students that because it was like like want to develop the rapport first, but she just went in like guns blazing, like, oh, Miss P's on TikTok, he's famous, which I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not famous. Like it's
Yeah. So like
very.
that's a strange thing to navigate through as an educator. Social media.
It is.
Like it's a very strange thing to navigate through. And I've always liked to make content. Me and my son used to make he used to make little videos, and we'd make videos together, and I'd edit it for him, and we post things up. And then he stopped doing it because he got mature, and he's like, Dad, I'm too old for this now. I don't. He just stopped, and I was like, okay, son, that's fine. But I
Yeah.
still had that itch, and I would still make little home videos, YouTube videos, um, and I just kept going, but and then I was like, what, I have this passion about talking about how educators need to build relationship with students with difficult behavior.
Yeah.
And I was like, let me make content around that. But, it was always like tricky for me because I was like, does anybody even want to hear that? Does anybody want to hear about that kind of stuff? Like, I don't know. So I'd start, I stop, I start, I stop. And then like last year, 2023, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do it. And I just kept doing it. Like almost every day, I'd post something almost every day. And then,
Awesome.
I started to get a lot of followers. Some videos took off and I'd get more followers. And for me, it was last year, I would say sometime in September, students were like, hey, Mr. Vergara, hey, you have a TikTok page, huh? And I was like, what? What are you talking about? I'm gonna walk over here. And I'd walk away. I would just walk away. I'd walk away. I wouldn't even entertain their question. And
Yeah.
it just kept happening. They're like, Mr. Vergara, you're TikTok famous. I saw how many, I was like, what? And I'd walk away. I'd walk away. And
Yeah.
finally, I just accepted. I was like, yeah, I'm on TikTok. I go, but don't send me any messages. I'm not gonna respond to you. I go,
Right.
don't send me anything. I won't respond to you. It just, I'm on TikTok. Yes, I am, but don't send me any messages.
Yeah.
And it's tricky because I'm an administrator, and it's tricky. It's I don't know. So but they did find me last September, and yeah, it was strange. It took me a while to accept. I thought I could be hidden for a bit, man. It didn't work out.
When you told them not to send you messages, did they listen or did they like flood
Well,
your page with
you know
messages?
what? I blocked a couple people.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
blocked a couple. I was like, "Don't send me messages." I
Yeah.
go, "Don't send me any messages." And then a couple of them did. I was like, "Block, block," and they're like, "Mister, why did you block?" I was like, "I told you." I go, "Don't send me any messages." I go, "Don't send me any messages." I
Yeah.
made an announcement. I was like, "Hey, if you don't want to get blocked," I go, "I don't even know who you are." I go, "There's a lot of followers. I don't even know who you are." So, um, don't send me any. That's my rule. Don't send me any messages. So that's why I had to block a couple. But yeah, it's a strange thing. Navigating through social media as an educator is a strange thing, but I feel like I don't know, I feel like it's a must. That's me.
I hear
So
you. I think it's a balance of like, okay, do the pros outweigh the cons? Like the cons are yes, the students know that we're on the internet and like all this stuff. But like look at all the pros. Like for me, like the pros are way they vastly outweigh the cons in my mind. One like it depends on your situation. Like you gotta if you are a teacher watching this and you were at a school or like maybe your administration isn't like too enthusiastic about social
yeah,
media,
pro
just
social
maybe be
media.
careful, right? Like that's a major con to consider. And I'm not saying don't do it because in my old school, like I just didn't tell anybody about it,
Mhm,
like on the
mhm.
administrative side. My students knew about it, but they kind of knew like not to like,
Yeah,
spread the word or anything. And like it wasn't that big a deal. But I'm pretty certain that if I had like asked permission, I probably would have been told no. So like I just didn't ask permission, just kind of
yeah,
did it. It's like, but like at the same time, if your content is positive, your content is intended to bring value, why not do it? Like if it's
right.
family friendly, like why not do it? Like you and I are posting stuff that like anybody could watch it. Like there's nothing, here and there might be like some uh controversial might be a heavy word for it, but like topics that promote different perspectives and or like people that have different perspectives on, but that's in a healthy environment. As long as like it's not people getting crazy in the comments, I think it can be good. It's good to discuss
Yeah,
these things. Like we need to have these discussions. And so yeah, in my mind, it's all about do the cons and the pros. Like what are they, and do the pros outweigh the cons?
that's right. And in your comment section, you get negative comments? And then how do you deal with negative comments if you do get negative comments?
Um, I, I've gotten a few. Most of the time, recently, uh, it's interesting. I think it's partly like one of the things I'm trying to get better at making videos to promote more engagement, which would mean more comments. I don't get a ton of comments on my videos. Often, like to the point where like I have to like filter through them. I can usually read all of them, and usually they're all positive. But every once in a while, I'll post a science video that someone has like, oh, like that isn't true, or like
Yeah.
like said so and so. And there was one recently where someone on my Instagram posted like a comment like saying, oh, like what you said like isn't accurate. I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. Like I made a mistake. Like, and I appreciate that, and I acknowledge that. I misphrased it. Like the number I said like the human body is made of like a billion atoms when I meant to say a billion atoms. Like I was completely
Yeah.
off. And I said it just careless mistake. And so I appreciate that comment. But it's all about how you frame it. There's been someone else tried to like say that I was wrong in one of my videos about like uh, all snowflakes are unique, and he was like, "That's not true." All this, I'm
Yeah.
like, there's scientific literature that like just like that literally goes against what you're saying, like that supports my views, like, but I didn't want to like spend the energy like going back and forth. But it's a tricky thing. Is like that one comment sticks in my mind, and like there's probably hundreds of other comments I've had over the last year that are positive that don't stick in my mind. And so
Right.
I've seen this on people's pages of people who are many more followers than me, and the negative comments, they'll stick with you, and unless you
Right.
develop that muscle of just letting it roll off your shoulders.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. When I
yeah,
when I first started it somewhere like in January or February, I'd get negative comments and it would stick with me. I'd be
yeah,
like, "Oh man, why am I even wasting my time? I'm wasting my time doing this." Like
I hear you.
I'm getting these comments and I still get negative comments because I'll say stuff like students with difficult behavior follow people before they follow rules, and then
Mm,
that's like some sort of really ridiculous thing. Then people are like, "Oh, what do you mean?" And I'll say stuff like, "Educators should teach character building." they need to teach respect, responsibility, that kind of stuff inside the classroom. And then I'll get somebody saying, well, that's the parent's job, and we don't need to do that. We just need to teach, and that's it, and that's the parent's job. And I'm like, okay, yeah, but what if they didn't teach them those skills and they're in your classroom? Now
Yeah,
what?
we're talking
Now,
about an ideal world. Like we don't live in an ideal world.
yeah,
Like,
exactly, exactly. Now what? What are you gonna do when a kid is in your classroom and he doesn't know about respect, and he doesn't know about time management, and he doesn't know about being honest? Are you gonna What are you gonna do? You ignore that? You're not gonna show them the way, like what are you gonna do with that? And so, you know, as an educator, you deal with students with difficult behavior, I'm sure. I'm sure there's students with difficult behavior, in your classrooms.
mhm.
How do you manage that? And then how do you teach? Do you teach character building inside your classroom?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think as a school, we do a good job of like school wide. How we have our core values: heart, head, hustle, and like it's like the school's brand. I
Heart,
love the
head, hustle?
hard head hustle. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, I mean, it's one of those things like middle school, like they're not gonna be as enthusiastic about like
Oh,
a
yeah.
motto as like maybe other people would, but because it's middle school. But I do think we do a good job of like we sort of had that as a foundation, the mindsets that we want all students to have, and the way I bring that in my classroom, it starts off just real simple. Like during full class, like I have. You can edit this. I'm getting
Yeah,
so
that's okay. That's okay. It actually makes for good content.
Of course, of course.
It does.
For me, it's like start. I always focus on a strong start of the class. That's like my main focus when it comes to like behavior. If we walk in loud, we try again. It's
Yeah.
all about practice. I treat it more like practice, like because I know y'all can enter quietly. Like I've seen you do it. The first 2 weeks of school, you did great, and like even like later on in school, you have seasons where you just do this over and over again amazingly, and like for some reason, like you have a bad day, great. So when we have bad days, what do? We practice how we do it right, and it's okay to take more time. And I would say this: if you're a new teacher, don't be afraid to spend time
That's right.
practicing the way that your classroom should be. Because if you
Yeah.
don't, like it's a snowball effect. And if you let the
Right.
little things, it's a little louder today, tomorrow it's going to be even louder. Like if you,
Mhm.
so it's important to really have that high standard and hold students to that standard. So for me, it's practice. The way I deal with like if I've gotten pretty good at like if we get to a strong start, generally, like I saw you make a comment in one of your videos about like you want to come to school and just have a nice day. That's why I teach behavior because I want to have a nice, easy
That's
day.
right.
Generally, that's my formula for like a good class. If we have a strong start, generally class is good. Now it's middle school, so every once in a while we get the situation where like there's maybe some trickle over from before school or something, or like another class of like some kind of drama that's happening, right? Middle school drama always going on, right? There's always something. So somebody might
Mhm.
whisper something that makes someone mad. And like if there is a situation in class that happens, um, the first thing I always do is if it's something I can like talk with a student privately one-on-one, like in the moment, keep it quiet and private as much as possible so like the rest of the class doesn't like see, like it doesn't become a show. If I can do that, great. If it's like a situation where I really just like a student needs to cool off, I'll pull them to the door, check. It's a check-in, like what's happening, like can you tell
Yeah.
me what's going on, because there's always two sides. Okay, uh, I'm not saying what they said was okay, but consider your like how are like is what you're doing going to help the situation? Again, like future you, like think about future you. Like if you were in a better space, would you want to be acting like this? And if that conversation can happen, awesome. If they can't have that conversation, then I have a space in the room called the calm corner that they can just go sit. It's got
Okay.
pencils. They can write about it. They can sometimes students find. I found this. I'm giving students an opportunity to write about what's going on. They might not want to say it to me in the moment. Like speaking about it can be hard. If they can write about what happened, that sometimes gives them more time to process. And so I think that's if there's a way to give students a space to either if it's just sitting and resetting, if it's just like a space by themselves to just like process what happened and then talk to you, or if it's a space to sit and write about it, like I think that's really important. And then yeah, I think the biggest thing is like how do you teach students behavior is you model it.
Yeah.
One big thing that when it comes back to what I was saying earlier about consistency, it's like I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase this. The more you can be consistent with and say what you mean and follow through with what exactly you mean, you're
Mhm.
gonna experience better behavior. Like
Right.
because I feel like students, I shouldn't say I feel like I know that students' lives are chaotic. Like there's so much inconsistency in their life day in day out, and so if you can model that, okay, this is like the appropriate way to behave in this space. If you can model that day in day out, then they'll pick up on that, you know. And
Yeah.
that's like again back to the like walking in loud. Like no, we walk in quiet. Let's practice. Let's do it again. We
Yeah.
can keep practicing. Like how many times do I want to do this? I'd love to do our lesson, but if y'all want to keep practicing, we can do
Right.
that, you know, kind of thing. And so yeah,
Now,
that's my thoughts on that.
yeah, how big are you on consequences? Like, are you a big
Good
consequence guy?
question.
Like these students need to get consequences, or like, I know there's a certain level of certain amount of consequences that students need to get, but like
Mhm.
some people believe that you always got a consequence for every behavior, and some people believe that what, I could talk my way through this, and if they understand and they learn and they get it, maybe they don't need this harsh consequence. Maybe their behavior will improve. So what's your stance on consequences?
Good question. Again, I think it's a balance. I think there are times where I think there's kind of two kinds of consequences, right? There's like the natural consequence, right? And that's a good time to have a conversation. Like okay, like great, like a good example of that would be like, okay, progress reports come, students got a D, they're upset.
Mhm.
Okay, that's a natural. Like, let's talk about it. Why'd you get a D? Well, this is a natural consequence of you not paying attention. Like, if you like putting your head down when I'm trying to teach you, or you
Yeah,
not finishing your work, or whatever the case may be. And so that's a good time to have that conversation. I think one of the best immediate consequences that's also kind of a natural consequence, but like one that I would give a student is just moving their seats. Like
yeah.
moving seats is a real easy. I mean, you know,
It could be easy. Sometimes they don't want to move. Sometimes they don't want to move.
yeah, sometimes I don't want to move, but for the most, I mean, that's where again, like it um, it's one of those things where like rapport and starting like the year strong
That's right.
and like like the first time a student like it's also a follow through, right? Like um, you know, for like that's a big one. Is like okay, I'll tell a student like all right, like I need you focusing. If I have to remind you again, then we will move seats. So it's like I let them know what's going to happen if I have to talk to them again about their whispering to their neighbors, something like that. So
Yeah.
that helps. If it's just like, hey, move your seat, like without any warning, that can be triggering and that can be tough. And usually I have much more success for a consequence when I like I make sure they're aware of the consequence that's going to happen. Typically, another consequence I will often do is parent contact. It often is effective, not always, but you know, over the course of the school year, you kind of get to know like which parents you can really like lean on for support, and you know which ones might not be the most effective, and so you have to think of other avenues. Um, so and of course, like thankfully at our school we do have solid administrative support. So like if it is a
Good.
really dire situation, I shoot them a message on we use Dean's List, and it's like all right,
Yeah.
someone's in to support if it's really that critical. Um,
What,
and
Mr.
yeah,
P, it sounds like, you build your it sounds like you run your class based on, like you're saying, rapport and relationship, right? If
mhm,
you had mentioned, like, if you start off the year with good procedures, good classroom procedures, and you
yep,
build that rapport and you build those relationships, then you having to tell a student to do something isn't going to be that big of a deal, because you've already established, me and you are good. I'm looking out for your best interest. This is your home away from home in this classroom. I'm here supporting you, and the advice I'm giving you is not to harm you or hurt you. The advice I'm giving you is to make you a better person. Like
yeah,
you had mentioned, your future self would thank you for behaving better now. Like your future self wants you to behave better now.
yep,
And that's what it sounds like you do. Does that sum it up?
yeah. I think that sounds
Yeah.
really well. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's that. I feel the exact same way. I feel the exact same way, where if I build that rapport, even as an administrator, if I build that rapport, students are going to listen.
Yeah.
Students are going to listen if they know I have their best interest in mind. But if they feel like I don't have their best interest in mind, if they feel like, we don't have any relationship, and I'm just there handing out consequences and just being mean and rude,
Yeah.
they're going to push back. They're going to push back.
Mhm.
And you had mentioned also too, um, follow through, right? Follow through. Like if you say something, like if you say, I'm going to whatever, give you X amount of detention time, right?
Mhm.
I think you can't say something ridiculous like, I'm gonna give you 30 minutes of detention time or whatever it is. I'm gonna give you 30. No, you want to start off with like, you know what, you're gonna stay back for 2 minutes. We're gonna talk. For 2 minutes,
Yeah.
we're gonna talk right here because I could do 2 minutes and you could do 2 minutes.
Yes.
But for me to hold you accountable for 30 minutes, that's gonna be hard to do. And the most important thing I think is holding students accountable and being able to, deliver that whatever consequence you have, instead of saying, you have 30 minutes and then it never happens. That
Mhm.
consequence never happens.
Yeah.
Like something simple. Like I work at an elementary school, so like kids like to run when the bell rings. They're not supposed to run.
Right, right, right.
I could say something like, "Go back all the way over there, and then come back and walk over here to me and show me that you could walk."
Yeah.
Or I could talk to them and make it more simpler. Like, "Hey, we don't run, for safety reasons. I need you to walk ten more spaces back this way, and then show me 10 steps that you could walk.
Yeah.
Show me 10 steps that you could walk, and then I'm good."
Exactly.
And that's so much easier to follow through with than
Yes.
saying, "All right, I need you to go way over there and do
Right.
something that you could follow through with." And I could do 10 steps, and you could do 10 steps. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love it. And I think
Yeah.
also being aware of like the systems in your school that that are in place that you can enforce. Like if your school doesn't have a very consistent detention system, like be mindful of that if you're going to dish out that as a consequence, right? Uh, like the consequences at our school, it's pretty much like we have Fun Friday every week for students who like meet a certain amount of points. And if you don't hit your points, you don't go to Fun Friday, and you reflect instead. Like talk to either an administrator or a teacher about like what can you do better next week. And so
Yeah.
like, that's a pretty like consistent. Like I know I can use that as leverage because that's a system our school has in place, right? Like whether or not it's the best system is up for debate. We can discuss that another time. I
Yeah.
think it's fine. People who watch might consider that not the best system. It's like the whole PBIS thing, but it's a system that we have in place at our school that I know I can use. And so so you got to think what system you have in your school and like in your own classroom. Like if in your own classroom you have a different setup, more autonomy, like make sure that your system is consistent. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um, on a different note, I saw that you run, and I wanted to bring this up to you. I saw that you ran. You're on vacation right now. You're on your winter break, and you're posting videos of you running.
Yeah.
Like what? Tell me about your running. I want to know about that.
I don't know. I just running is one of those things. It's I think since college. In college, I got into fitness because I'd never really been into like working out just for the sake of working out, just for fitness sake in high school and junior high. And when I played baseball though, I played baseball my whole life, and I was always like, okay, how can I get better at baseball? And here and there, I have little seasons of like doing push-ups and stuff to try to like get more fit for baseball. But it was usually just like practice, like going to practice, maybe running at practice, and like just practicing my skills on the field. In college, I for some reason felt like trying out for the college baseball team at University of Pleasant. Tried to
Wow.
walk on, and I was pretty good. Like I was good. I played high school baseball. Like
Yeah.
and I had some friends who were actually recruited to like play there, and I was like, and they were like, hey, just like come to practice, like come to tryouts. Like why not?
Hmm.
And there was this whole semester long process. You had to go to this class called dynamic fitness, and that got me into fitness. And through that, I got just I was like, I was hooked. Like I really loved lifting. I was really into lifting weights and kind of staying fit in the gym, and then running on the side. Really got into. And then as I got older, it was more like here, weights and running was here when I was younger. Now running is up here, and lifting is a little bit more down here. But like I still like to when I have time to, if I can get into the gym, I can. But running is great for me just mentally. It's a chance for me to reflect. Kind of before I got into meditation, it was on meditation. It still is a form of that for me. I had my EDM playlist playing, and I just go. And I ran my first marathon, my only marathon in 2022. That was like a big like milestone, like
That's
bucket
good.
list. I ran the San Francisco Marathon in 5 hours.
Yeah.
It was not pretty, but I got through it. And it's just one of those things. It really helps me. If I can get a good long run in, like an hour plus at least, like once every week or two, like I'm good. And then in the middle of the week, it's like 10 minutes, 20 minutes on the treadmill at late at night when the kids are asleep. And that scratches the itch.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
So
all about
Yeah, you're running shoes. Brooks guy? You're a Brooks guy?
Yeah, so there's a there's a store, a running store in town called Fleet Feet,
Yeah. Yeah.
and oh yeah, yeah, I guess they're
There's one in Burbank as well, where I
nice.
live. Yeah, yeah.
So Fleet Feet's great because they just fit you to whatever shoe is best. So I mean I like the Brooks I got. It's pretty much I go into Fleet Feet and I'm just like, hey, whatever you tell me to wear, I will wear because it
Yeah,
is a
yeah.
little fitting and all that stuff. Yeah, my brother's also really into running. He ran cross country, and so like he lives in Chico, up the road a little bit ways. But running's a way to stay in touch. Like we post, he sees me on Strava. I see him on
Yeah.
Strava. You know,
Strava.
yeah, yeah. So
Mhm.
you're on Strava. Follow me on
Yeah.
Strava.
Yeah,
So,
I love running too, like, I know I got into running because when I was a dean, my administrator there, he was talking a lot of trash, and he was like, you know what, you can't run, Mr. Vergara. And I was like, I'll run. He's like, let's run a half marathon. I was like, all right, let's run a half marathon. And we made a bet. We're like, you know what,
yeah.
I'm like, you can't beat me. I go, you cannot beat me. I'll
Oh,
beat
it's
you in this
a
half
race.
marathon. So it's like a challenge.
Yeah.
And so we ran this half marathon. It was by the beach, and we ran it, and I was ahead of him, right? I was ahead of him, and he beat me.
Oh no.
My administrator beat me. I started off ahead of him, but he beat me. He beat me by maybe like a minute or so, and then
Oh
for the
man.
remainder of the year, he just talked trash. he,
Oh
he
my
would just
god.
walk by me and say something, like just some comment, or
Yeah.
we'd be in our meeting. We'd be in our meeting, our out of the classroom meeting with the administrator and the counselor, and then he just bring it up out of the blue, like, hey, Mr. Vergara, what was your time again? Like stuff like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, that got me excited about running. And right after that, I ran a marathon. So I think I ran the 2019 LA Marathon right
Oh
before COVID. Right before COVID, I think it
yeah.
was, or the 2020. Was it 20? Let me look. It was, I believe it was 2020. 2020 marathon.
All over there.
Yeah, well, my it's right there. I'm like, oh, there it is, right there.
I
So,
love it.
I ran the 2020 marathon, and I barely trained. I barely trained for it,
That's
and I
like me.
ran it in 5 hours and 13 minutes.
I
And
was like 5:25.
yeah, as I got
I
a
was embellishing.
stress fracture on my right foot when I got to. I ran for, I must say, I ran for like
Yeah.
21 miles, and then something happened in my right foot, and I was like, oh, and I
That's not
ran walk for the rest of the time, and I finished in like 5 hours and 13 minutes. And I remember I was so exhausted, so proud of myself, but
yeah.
so exhausted. And I got my wife came, she picked me up, drove home, and then when I tried to get out of the car, I couldn't walk. My
Oh
legs
yeah.
were shot. They were so shot. I was like, oh, I was holding on to things. I could not walk. Uh,
That's me, man. I hear that.
yeah,
Yeah, my wife and she brought our kids out, and we went out with like a couple of my friends ran the half marathon in San Francisco, and like we all like got drinks and stuff afterwards and kind of celebrated. And
yeah,
I felt like I was doing all right, but like that next day, and like even get out the car, like oh, it was so hard. Oh my god.
yeah. And I told my wife, I was like, you know what? When I finish this, I want you to put this beer in the refrigerator, because when I
Yeah,
come home, I'm gonna drink that.
yeah,
I
yeah.
got home and I laid on the couch and I went to sleep. I just went to sleep. I was in the, I'm gonna go to sleep, and
Yes,
that's what I did. And
real
then in 2022, I ran the marathon again, but I trained for it, and
nice.
it was a lot better. Lot better. I had a
What was
better time. It was a better experience. I think I ran it in 4 hours and 30 minutes, which was a lot better time than. And my legs weren't shot, and I actually ran it. And so that was good. And so now I'm training with my wife to run the marathon coming up, the 2024 marathon, LA Marathon in March.
okay?
So yeah, we're gonna give it a shot. She's ran a half marathon, but she's not a runner really.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so we're gonna give it a shot. It might take us 6 hours or whatever it's gonna take us, but
As long as you pass, man, pass the finish line. That's
just pass
amazing.
the finish line. Pass the finish line. But uh, I have another question. Like, I'm gonna go jump back to social media.
Do it.
How much time do you spend? How
That's
much
a
time do you spend on making videos, putting them up? Because I know what my number is. I know my routine, but I want to hear what your number is. How much time you spend,
It's a
and
great
how
question.
often do you post?
So I'm really proud of this. Like kind of like you, I was very seasonal, very like reactive, sporadic. Didn't really have a process, and here and there a video go viral, but I didn't really have like I didn't really have consistency. And do you listen to a podcast called two guys called Colin and Samir? They do like
No.
creative content. Okay, so I got really into their podcast. They're like mid 30s, like my age, like similar stage of life. And I was like, okay, like these guys are making, and like I followed them from the beginning. And anyways, the whole reason why I bring that up is because they were like, focus on your process. If you can have a process and enjoy the process of the creating, then, worst thing that happens if you're enjoying the process, like you've already won, right? And so that was my whole goal. If I can create, and so I created it around this idea of if I can put out one video on TikTok a day, then and like enjoy that, I've won. And so that was like the game I was playing. Started in the summer, July. I looked at my TikTok actually yesterday to try to figure out like when I started the streak, and it was July, maybe like 10th. It was close to July 1st. I think it was like mid July, and it was like I did every single day. I probably spend if I had to average it, it's tough. Some days I spend more time than others. I would say an average of 20 to 30 minutes a day.
20, 30 minutes a day.
20,
Okay.
30 minutes a day. And I'm getting better at the process of it, like batching content. Like before legit, before the break, I've still posted throughout the break. The hard part is breaks because as a teacher, you're posting teacher content. Like I typically like the first thing is like, okay, your setup, right? Like I was mentioning earlier, like getting the setup right. Cause the setup can be one of those things, if you want your videos to have that same look, you got to have the studio. Like you got your room. I got this backdrop. So in my classroom, I set up this backdrop, my second backdrop on my wall. And I have a little tripod that's like super, easy to hold. This little guy right here.
Yeah.
My wife, I think my wife got me this. My wife gives me so much stuff for my content. She's like, you go, like you do this. Like it's so awesome. So you got to have support, right? That's one other thing.
That's good.
This is way too long of an answer. I'm so sorry. The amount of time I spend is probably 20, 30 minutes a day. But I'm never going to talk about this. Like this is like one of the first times I've gotten to talk about this with anybody else in this kind of setting. Cause like none of my friends do this. Like
No.
It's like literally just me. And but it's really fun, man. Like I love it. And I think, moving forward, the way I see TikTok going, it's more on the longer form side, which I think I'm kind of like a little bit more. It's more in line with kind of who I am as a person. Like I like to kind of just talk in this kind of setting a little bit more. So yeah, it's gonna be like on after school, maybe 10 minutes. I just set my camera up and I talk about whatever's on my mind about like teaching.
That's good.
Or a STEM. Recently, I've noticed I had. For some reason, TikTok, like the algorithm is
broken.
It's broken, but like, yeah, I hear that. But like, there's this one format that for some reason for me is getting a lot of views. It's the videos I post where I'm like, do you ever think about the fact that, and I give like some random science fact, and then I have a science fact on top of that. And for some reason, those are getting a lot of views. So I'm trying to work out like some scripts that I can just batch and film like 10 of those. And like,
I put that in my notes right here. The idea of do you ever think about the fact that those videos, because you've recently been posting those videos, do you ever think about the fact that, and so you wait, you're like, well, fact about what? Like, I want to know. And that's catchy. That's catchy.
Catchy.
Yeah, that's catchy. And so you wait and you're like, what?
Okay. Like I just did it randomly in a video and I got some views. And I'm gonna try that again, And so the biggest thing, I mean, you always hear about like if you can if you get viral for one video, it can be a blessing and a curse, right? Like if the video is viral and it's a format you can replicate over and over again, it's a blessing. Like you can just do that over and over again. And I look at these creators of like, some of these people got the perfect blend of like their videos that go viral are the thing that they're making. And then the thing that they're making, they can sell and they can link it all in the same video. It's like this perfect cycle. With us, it's a little different because like, I'm not like right now, I'm not trying to sell nothing. But like, it'd be cool to like, eventually I talk about this in I post this video I made in the Trader Joe's parking lot of like the top 5 things I noticed on teacher TikTok content for 2023. And one of them was teacherpreneurs. This is kind of related to what you're talking about, like quick sidebar. And like, yeah, like I think TikTok and content and if teachers can find ways to put their lessons out there and their knowledge out there, it can be a way to like make a little bit extra money and more what you're worth. Because like you know, keeping it real, I am very blessed with what I make as a teacher, but I cannot support my family like on just my salary. Like
Mhm.
my wife and I, like thankfully, like you
Yeah.
know, we pool it all together and we
Yeah.
do okay. But yeah. So, anyways, long answer. Edit how you will.
Yeah, that's a
Man, you got me inspired.
no, you know what? It's a process. This whole I
What's
spend a
your
lot
number?
of time. So
What's your number?
I spend I spend at least 2 hours a day.
That's awesome.
At least 2 hours a day, right? So I have a ridiculous routine, and I'm so like routine, like everything's a routine for me, and but so for the most part, I wake up early. I wake up at like 4:15. I walk my dog, go to the gym, and I get home. It's like, I don't know, 6 o'clock. Drink my coffee, read a little bit, and then
You're
I'm getting ready for work, and I'm out.
Yep.
On the way back from work, it's 4:30. I have 3 kids, but they're old. My kids are like 30, 31, 26, and 19. So I get home, it's like 4ish, have dinner, walk the dog, spend a little time with the family, and then it's content creating time. So
Yeah.
I got like I would say from 6 to about 8 o'clock, about 6 to 8. I'm in my room. I'm typing up scripts. I'm editing videos. I'm making videos. As long as I get in 2 hours a day of writing, creating, film, whatever I have to do, it's 2 hours. And then
Amazing.
that's what I do. And then on the weekends, I try to get as much time as possible. So I'll try to get in maybe 3 hours. If I could get 3 hours,
Yeah.
great. If sometimes I can't get anything because it's the weekend and we're going somewhere and it's
Of
busy. But
course.
if I could get whatever I could get in the weekend, 1 hour to 3 hours, great. But usually it's 2 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that works for me. That
That's
works for me.
Do you love it?
Yeah,
Like,
I love it.
does it fill you up when you're spending all that time?
Like I feel like I have this mission, like this drive, right? Like, I was reading this book and it was talking about uh your dream or whatever, these goals that you have for yourself,
Do
and
you know
goals that they mentioned something like goals that it's a means to an end. For instance, if you want to let's say I have a truck. If I want to pay off my truck, it's a let's say it's a $60,000 truck. um that's a goal where it's a means to an end. You're just hoping to pay off this truck, and then after you pay off this truck, you're going to use that money for something else or whatever, right? So it's a means to an end, and it's not too exciting. It doesn't get you excited about it because you're it's a means to an end. But if you have a goal, like you want to inspire educators to see students in a you want to inspire educators to love science.
Yeah.
You want to inspire educators to be passionate about their teaching. Well, there's no means to an end there. That's just continuous.
Yeah.
You're just going to continuously add, give to somebody else, give to educators, give to students, give to parents, families. You're just giving. That's all you're doing. And there's no end in sight. You're not trying to, there's no end in sight, like,
Yeah.
and whatever comes about that, whether you can monetize that or whether, it gets bigger, you have a YouTube, whatever it is, that's not really your goal. Your goal is just to put out that content to inspire other people about science,
100%.
right? And so
Yep.
that kind of goal is inspiring. That kind of goal is something that gets you motivated and gets you, to continue to keep going. But if I have a goal to pay off my truck, well, that's not exciting. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it's great. I'll pay off my truck, but I don't know. Then what? Then what's next? Like then what else am I going to pay off? What credit card do I have to pay off next? And
Yeah.
it's not that exciting. And so, you asked me, are you inspired? But yes, I love it. I love it. Um, I started off in my bedroom with this one little tripod facing a weird angle, and the room was weird colored, and I'm like, okay, and it was like little piece by piece. I got this light, I got this microphone, and, I'm doing these things, and it just keeps on evolving. And I'm just trying myself to inspire educators to understand that building relationship with students is an important part of being an educator, right? And you
Yeah.
can't neglect that. You cannot neglect that. So I love it. I spent a lot of time doing it. And, this podcast is a spin-off of, like, I'm like, okay, I like making videos and I like editing videos. Like I was telling you, I got into CapCut and I feel like my videos, I could edit videos a little bit better.
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what? There's Let me try a podcast. Let me try a podcast. Let me invite educators that I follow on TikTok, and let's just talk. Let's just talk and make some content, some content that might help some other educator, And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. I've done two. You're my third person right now, and um, it's exciting. It's fun.
So dope. I've thought about doing a podcast before. And actually, 2 years ago, one of my Teach America friends and I, like, we technically, like, we started it, and then I just didn't have time for it. But he continued it, and I'll have to connect you to him. I think it'd be fun for.
Absolutely, that'd be great.
He's awesome. He doesn't.
Yeah,
He was on TikTok for a bit. Doesn't do a whole lot of TikTok stuff, but he's really into the podcast. Like,
yeah,
it's called The Broken Copier, and he just interviews educators. And so I like. But I've always thought, like, how fun would it be to just, like, hit up everyone I know on TikTok and pod, like, and just hang out.
yeah. So
I think,
you had mentioned this video. You had mentioned in one of your videos. You had talked about, like, I think I listened to it. Your top 5 predictions for educators, something like that, right? And your final one was um, teacher quit talk. You
yes,
had mentioned teacher quit talk, right?
yes.
How moving into 2024, how teacher burnout is a real thing, right? What do you do personally, or what kind of advice can you give to any future educator right now about combating teacher burnout?
I love talking about this because it's something that I was legit considering, like, leaving the classroom about a year and a half ago, just because I was so burnt out. Um, um, I'll start over. So about a year and
Yeah,
a half ago, I was considering leaving the classroom because of the burnout. I was considering, like, not quitting mid-year or anything like that, but, like, it was November of 2022, and I was just, like, so burnt.
yeah,
And keep in mind, I'm also at the time I had a 1 year old and a 3 year old, so, like, there's that side of thing. Like, it was like I was basically like, is this the right season for me to be a teacher? Like, should I should I put my family through, like, me being just so exhausted all the time that I'm just not being my best as a father, as a husband, and that's when I discovered, or I should say, intentionally put time into meditation, and pursuing, like, wellness and little things that, I use the phrase, like, disproportionately improve my wellness. So my advice to teachers would be, find that thing that disproportionately improves your wellness. For example, if I can spend 10 minutes meditating, for me, that disproportionately helps me as a teacher, a husband, and a father. Like, because what it does is it reminds me that I can just, like, in a tense moment, like, slow down and just, like, breathe and kind of think through, like,
yeah,
again, that future me. Like, I tell my students, like, what would future me say if I, like, react to this scenario in a way that is a negative reaction, as opposed to being mindful, maybe walking away, taking a minute to think about it. Like, I can't do that in the classroom necessarily. I'm thinking, like, more on the home life side of things.
hmm
Um, and just, like, be more mindful of the words that I use, or the, like, the tone that I use. Like, tone is a big thing. Body language is a big thing too, in the classroom and in personal relationships. So find that thing that disproportionately improves your wellness. It could be committing to, like, maybe it's committing to clearing 30 minutes a day in the evening time to just completely unplug and watch a TV show. But, like, scheduling it, like, so it's not like you're doing it because you're burnt out and you're reactive, and then you find yourself in this binge cycle of, like, and then it's, like, too late to go to bed, like, you're going to
yeah,
be super late. It's like you don't want it to be unhealthy, you want it to be intentional. I would push for it and encourage you to, like, if you're a new educator and, like, you're trying to combat burnout, consider, like, what's something you can do for 10 minutes a day. My magic number for me has been 10 minutes. That's what I've mentioned that on some of my TikToks. If I can do 10 minutes a day of this, it really helps. Gratitude journaling, something else I've done that's really simple, that right before I go to sleep, I read somewhere that, I mean, who knows if it's true or not? Like, if there's any like scientific proof of this, but for me, it really helps going before I go to sleep, because what I read is that it can rewire your brain into, like before you go to sleep, writing things you're thankful for. It just puts you in a better state when you're sleeping to then wake up in a better state when you wake up in
Yeah.
the morning. And so it's like just little things like that. So almost like hacking wellness. Those are just some things that I would suggest. The other thing I would do is uh, really consider like um, scheduling out like what your time looks like in your planning period, and how you can use that to the best of your ability, because your planning period is like, it can go like that, but if you really use it well, it can really save you time in the long run. So like, for me, what I do is, I always I start planning. I plan first. I commit to like if I have an hour, I think about it. I have 70-minute plan periods. Let's be realistic. That 70 minutes equals 1 hour of work time, like max, because you
Mhm.
always, there's things that come up. But if I can commit
Yeah.
to like 20 minutes of hardcore planning, like uninterrupted, and then 20 minutes of grading. And then if I'm setting a lab, 20 minutes of lab time setup, like, getting the classroom ready for students, like blocking that time off and being intentional about it is game changing. It has been for me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
some,
Did you read Atomic Habits? Have you
I
read that
did.
book? Yeah.
Yes. Yes. It's literally,
It
it's
sounds like
literally,
Atomic Habits.
it is used to prop my laptop up for this. And my
Yeah. Oh, there it is.
to me. My principal, that's why it has P on it. My principal gave this to me as a gift. That's how dope, like she is. She just like gave this,
Yeah.
as a
That
gift every year. She gives the educators a book that, like, they want to read to get better at, to better at a skill.
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, do you have one last question? Do you have any tips for future educators? Any
Yeah.
any three tips that you give for any future educator, watching this video, listening to this podcast, and any tips for the future educators?
The biggest one, and this is the biggest tip. It's also the hardest. But if you are considering, like, right now, like next school year, becoming a teacher, spend as much time as you can writing down what your ideal classroom looks like, down to like the procedure, the expectation. To give you an example of this, I mean, like when I'm like, for me, when I am teaching, students are at a voice level 0. They are silent. Being very clear about that, like explicitly writing that out. Um, the more you can do that, and part of that's why I say it's the hardest thing to do as a future educator. If you haven't been in the classroom before, if you're a new educator, I still consider this exercise. Write it down, because the more clear you can be about what you expect, and the more clear you can communicate that to students, the easier it's going to be for them to meet your expectations.
Yeah,
So that's
like that.
it comes down to communication and consistency. So as a seasoned teacher, I know exactly what I need. And looking back, it's taken me time. Like my first year, I didn't like. I mean, I generally knew, but like you don't really know. If I had taken time, if someone had told me just spend 1 hour alone in a room and write down what you like, your vision for your classroom looks like, it's one of those things that's the first thing I would do. Um, the second would be, when you're in the classroom, hold students to the expectations that you set, and have them
Yeah,
practice it over and over again, and do not be afraid to, I don't want to say sacrifice, but to hold off on content for the sake of teaching them the expectations that are necessary. Because not only will you won't be able to teach content if students can't sit and listen or engage with the activity, if it's like a discussion based activity,
mhm,
but it's a life skill. Like, students need to be able to follow an instruction and meet an expectation. Like, that is something that's a life skill they need to be able to do. And so holding them to that. And the last would be focus on a wellness plan. Like, what can you do for yourself? Like I was just saying, to improve your own wellness as a
yeah,
human. Like, find one thing that you can do for 10 minutes a day that fills you up, because if you aren't filled up, then you can't pour out into your students.
that's right.
So
That's right. Mr. P, where can people find you? Where can people find you on social media?
TikTok, Mr. underscore Piasecki.
All right.
So, and then Instagram, same thing. Um, you can find me on YouTube too. Not very active there, but
Yeah.
you can find me on YouTube. You can find those chemistry rap videos on YouTube if you search Brandon Piasecki periodic table rap.
Oh, yeah.
That's one for the archives, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Well, Mr. P, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I greatly appreciate it. Your insights were spectacular today. We went a long time.
yeah,
I didn't expect us to go as long. We went pretty
thank,
long, but I appreciate your time. Taking time out of your schedule to come out and speak with me. I greatly appreciate
thank you so much, Mr. Vergara. This is great. I had so much fun.
that. All right, take care.